Good morning, friends. Today I wanted to read an excerpt from this book. Also, I wanted to state the obvious because it was obvious to me as soon as I put it on. I have a deodorant stain on my t-shirt. We're just going to try to ignore it and let's move on. This is the book, No Bad Parts, Healing Trauma and Restoring Wholeness with the Internal Family Systems Model. And this was the model used when they made the movie Inside Out 2. So this is from chapter 1 on page 14, How I Came to Learn About Parts. I started out like everybody else, thinking the mind is unitary, and I trained as a family therapist for years. In fact, I have a PhD in the field. As family therapists, we didn't pay much attention to the mind at all. We thought the therapists who mucked around in the inner world were wasting their time because we could change all of that by simply changing external relationships. The only problem was that that approach didn't work. I did an outcome study with bulimic clients and discovered with alarm that they kept binging and purging, not realizing they'd been cured. When I asked them why, they started talking about these different parts of them, and they talked about these parts as if they had a lot of autonomy, as if they could take over and make them do things they didn't want to do. At first, I was scared that I was looking at an outbreak of multiple personality disorder, but then I started listening inside myself and I was shocked to find that I had parts too. In fact, some of mine were fairly extreme. So I got curious. I asked the clients to describe their parts, which they were able to do in great detail. Not only that, but they depicted how these parts interacted with each other and had relationships. Some fought, some formed alliances, and some protected others. Over time, it dawned on me that I was learning kind of about this inner system, not unlike external families I was working with, hence the name Internal Family Systems. For example, clients would talk about an inner critic who, when they made a mistake, attacked them mercilessly. That attack would trigger a part that felt totally bereft, lonely, empty, and worthless. Experiencing that worthless part was so distressing that almost to the rescue would come the binge that would take clients out of their body and turn them into this unfeeling eating machine. Then the critic would attack them for the binge, which re-triggered the worthlessness, and they found themselves caught in these terrible cycles for days on end. It began to dawn on me that maybe these parts aren't what they seem. Maybe like children in dysfunctional families, they're forced out of their natural, valuable states into roles that sometimes can be destructive, but are, they think, necessary to protect the person or the system that they're in. So I started trying to help my clients listen to their troublesome parts rather than fight them, and was astounded to find that their parts all had similar stories to tell of how they had to take on protective roles at some point in the person's past, often roles that they hated but felt were needed to save the client. When I asked these protective parts what they'd do if they trusted they didn't have to protect, they often wanted to do something the opposite of the role they were in. Inner critics wanted to become cheerleaders or sage advisors. Extreme caretakers wanted to help set boundaries. Rageful parts wanted to help with discerning who was safe. It seemed that not only were parts not what they seemed, but also they each had qualities and resources to bring to the client's life that were not available while they were tied up in the protective roles. Now, several decades and thousands of clients later, and thousands of therapists doing IFS around the world, I can safely say that this is true of parts. They can become quite extreme and do a lot of damage in a person's life, but there aren't any that are inherently bad. Even the ones that make bulimics binge or anorexics starve or make people want to themselves, even those parts, when approached from this mindful place, this respectful, open, curious place, will reveal the secret history of how they were forced into the role they're in and how they're stuck in that role, terrified that if they don't do something dreadful will happen, and that they're frozen in the past during the traumatic times when they had to take on that role. Let's pause here to explore the spiritual implications of this discovery. Basically, what I found is that love is the answer in the inner world, just as it is in the outer world. Listening to, embracing, and loving parts allows them to heal and transform as much as it does for people. The big conclusion here is that parts are not what they have been commonly thought to be. They're not cognitive adaptations or sinful impulses. Instead, parts are sacred, spiritual beings, and they deserve to be treated as such. Another theme we will be exploring in this book is how it's all parallel. How we relate in the inner world will be how we relate in the outer. If we can appreciate and have compassion for our parts, even for the ones we've considered to be enemies, we can do the same for people who resemble them. On the other hand, if we hate or disdain our parts, we'll do the same with anyone who reminds us of them. And to finish off this section, some discoveries I made about parts. Even the most destructive parts have protective intentions. Parts are often frozen in past traumas when their extreme roles were needed. When they trust it's safe to step out of their roles, they are highly valuable to the system. I find this book to be extremely helpful in awakening or beginning to awaken some more inner self-compassion and self-love. Self-acceptance is truly key to healing and accepting yourself. So I'm definitely going to be sharing more from this book. Right? Yeah. He's got a haircut and already he has like the food feast back.